to export our Benda scooter to India. And now we'll talk about importing to the U.S. our dresses.
Okay, for this one, we are importing saris, as she mentioned before, and for this one, we didn't need as many documents as for the export, but we did need a packing list, which basically it was everything that was going to be included within the import. And for this one, it was a little bit difficult because we are importing fabric, so we do need like a specification of the different fabrics that are used for the dress, and we need the amounts that they use for each one. So that was a little bit tricky. We were actually working with, we found the website online, and the company or the manufacturer is called Achica, and it was the only website that we could find in English. So it was the one that we contacted. It was really hard for us to communicate with them because they wouldn't return our emails. They don't return our emails anymore. It got to a point where I guess they noticed that it wasn't completely true that we were going to work with them and do the import. They helped us a little bit. We wanted to order 20 saris because it was the first time working with them, and I know that you advise us the first time they work with a company, you don't really know how it's going to go and if the process is going to be smooth and if they're going to do all the right things for the process. So we wanted to order 20, but the requirement was 40. So we actually had to take the 40. If we were to do it, we would import 40. And for our company, we only do traditional saris, but they do offer bridal saris as well, and we thought that might be a good idea. So we order a different 5 saris for brides. But for that one, they use different materials or additional materials. So when we asked for the information for that one, they weren't willing to give us that, just because they weren't willing to work with us anymore. And that's things that might be included within the packing list. Then we also did a commercial invoice, which basically translates everything within the transaction. And that's from the purchase order to the payment, to the prices, to who is it going to go to and who is coming from. I'm sure all of you are familiar with it. Then we did the certificate of origin, and that's from the free trade agreement from 1985, I think. And that's just as, like you mentioned before, it's where it's coming from and to track that. And then we did the invoice, which outlines the prices. And for that, we figured, because they have the website online, so you can practically go and purchase the saris and they'll mail it to you, but it gets very expensive. For one sari, I think it was around $200. So we figured that importing them and offering to the customers here and having an actual store here was going to be a lot less, and we would be able to sell the saris for $40 and actually be very competitive towards those online websites where you can purchase them, but it's going to be $200, and it's going to be the same quality, the same material, and we're going to have as much priority as they do. And finally, it's the entry summary. We figured that it might be a good idea to do the immediate delivery, which is one of the options that we have, but at the end you have to do the entry summary as well, so it would just be double work. And because we're not in a rush for it, we decided to just go for the entry summary, and that's basically what allows you to, or what finishes the process of the entry to the port. And when we have communication with them, we agree on a letter of credit, because that's what you recommended. That's the best way of payment. And I was working with Wells Fargo to get that letter of credit, and then I didn't get the information to actually finish the letter of credit, and of course we didn't have an account, so it wouldn't really work. But that's the process or the steps that we would have taken if we would go through with the import.
So in the conclusion, the three specific things that we talked about was the principal import and export documentation. It's important to have documentation, the correct documentation, to make sure you streamline your process, make sure you get your product from location A to location B. Consolidate pertinent information. Having the correct information is very important. It's making sure that when you're exporting or importing, that all the codes, all the the addresses, the people you're dealing with, you have all that information, and also correct and accurate information. Lastly, also, there's times that, our company, we hear stories about stuff being held up because, our vendor didn't do this specific stuff, and so therefore, for a successful completion of the transaction, it's important to have these 3 steps done carefully. Take your time, cross your T's, dot your I's kind of thing, and you have a successful import-export transaction.
And we were happy to do this project because we did learn a lot about India and doing business there. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Come on, guys.
19. All right. Questions? Questions?
Did you guys find any forms or anything that had to be filled out, like in the local language? Because I know for China, we had a bunch of forms that had to be filled out in Chinese. Did you find anything like that, or because it was a British colony for so long? Was a
Because
lot of
there's a
English?
British colony since in the 19th century, so they speak good English.
And I think also too was kind of refreshing that exporting stuff or importing stuff to the U.S. is pretty much, pretty easy. It's a good infrastructure. There's a lot of help. There's the policies have been also it's helped us. Exporting to India, there was around 8 pages that we needed to have documents, but overall it wasn't there wasn't too much red tape. We felt that the process was pretty straightforward. You had your information. It's getting started. What I think it's the key is who you go contact, who's your contact, who you're gonna work with, and and just making sure that person you're gonna work with is legitimate, has all of the criteria that's needed to export a product from the U.S. to that country. I think it goes. If it's not India, China, it's anywhere. Just make sure you have that relationship and you understand exactly who your vendor or your contact person is.
Okay. Now, what are some of the things to watch out for India in doing business there?
What I mentioned is they don't want like our scooter couldn't come in at a lower price. So that's that's important. If you want to go into that market and say, okay, I want to sell it for cheaper, then they won't let you even come in. And so that's one thing to watch out is the price that you're going to be able to sell it for. Make sure it's your gross margins are not reduced. So that's one thing to watch out for India in regards to entering their country.
And then for import, I didn't find anything that would be challenging as far as India.
I'm sorry, what?
For the import, I didn't find anything that would be challenging as far as anything like that. It's just basically making sure that you're working with someone that is legit and that would go through the process.
Okay.
But in general, doing business in India or any other country, you have to keep in mind the cultural differences. And as I pointed out earlier, there are many different religions and different languages and dialects within each language. So you have to keep that in mind. So that can be a challenge sometimes.
Okay. Something else? All right. Thank you very much again. All right.
Oh, I didn't log off because I thought...
No, let's leave that on so for the next group.